Hi, good afternoon and welcome back to today's newspaper analysis. Let's make a start. And the first article we have in front of us, of course, relates to the Iran crisis. As you all know, the war launched by Israel and the United States against Iran, and then Iran's retaliations against the neighboring GCC countries have severely strained the energy resources of the region. Further, Iran's sort of maritime chokehold over the Strait of Hormuz has caused a dip in the movement of traffic in terms of energy resource. Okay, so that is the reason we see here things about the commercial LPG jet fuel rates rising amid the Iran crisis. Okay, so this is significant. As you all know, one of the big impacts on India has been the issues with the supply of LPG or liquefied petroleum gas. Today, later in today's slides, we are going to take a look about LPG, LNG, CNG, and PNG. What are the differences between them? As you all know, some of the law entrances sometimes ask slightly scientifically oriented questions as well. So we will take a look at it in depth. There is an article in the Hindu today explaining all of it. But because of the crisis in Iran, commercial LPG and jet fuel rates have been increased. Let's move forward. This is a very interesting news story. It has to do with the territorial divisions within India. So the title here tells us that Lok Sabha has passed a bill recognizing Amravati as the sole capital of Andhra Pradesh. So there is a bit of history here. I won't go back way back to the independence years, but as you all know, in 2014, the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act was passed. Okay, so there is the AP Reorganization Act of 2014. What did this act do? This act divided the state of Andhra Pradesh into Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Okay, as per this law, a city would be the joint capital of these states for a period of 10 years. So that was the city of Hyderabad, which was designated as the joint capital of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana as per the AP Reorganization Act of 2014. All right, now 10 years elapsed. That time period expired in 2024. Now, over the years, several governments ruled the state of Andhra Pradesh. Initially, the idea was that a new city would be built, which would serve as the capital city of Andhra Pradesh. That would be the city of Amravati. Of course, Amravati is a historical city, but the plan was for the development of this city as the capital of the state of Andhra Pradesh. So that was the initial proposal. As you all know, different governments have different things in mind. So when the government in Andhra Pradesh changed, they came up with a proposal that Andhra Pradesh would have three capitals: one executive capital, one legislative capital, and one judicial capital. That is to say, Vizag, Amravati, and Kurnool. Okay. So that was the plan. Ultimately, that was disallowed by the High Court of Andhra Pradesh. And when the government changed, again, the plan shifted back to making Amravati the capital of Andhra Pradesh, the sole capital. Now, of course, Lok Sabha has amended this act. Which act? The Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. This amendment, which has just been passed in Lok Sabha yesterday, designates Amravati as the sole capital of Andhra Pradesh. So once this bill is passed by both houses and signed by the president, it will be clear that Hyderabad is the capital of Telangana and Amravati is the capital of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, that's the long story short of this entire bill, recognizing Amravati as the sole capital of Andhra Pradesh. Today in the Hindu, there was this sort of a retrospective editorial written by Sri Ram Panchu, senior advocate and mediator, about the whole NCERT book ban initiated by the Supreme Court of India. As you know, NCERT had published a version of a social studies book meant for students in school. And this book, in the chapter on judiciary, had referenced judicial corruption and pendency of cases. Now, the Supreme Court took suo motu cognizance of this issue and said that this seems like a designed, intentional attempt to malign the judiciary, to scandalize the judiciary. And therefore, the Supreme Court ordered that this book be blanket banned, that there be no circulation, recirculation, publishing, and that any copies already sold be taken back and it be pulled down from the internet as well. So it was a very sweeping order by the Supreme Court, and of course it poses huge concerns about the freedom of speech and expression. So Sri Ram Panchu has written this editorial advising caution that all organs of the government must be careful to respect the right to freedom of speech and expression, and advises how this situation could have been resolved in a better fashion. His larger point is that the court is not above legitimate criticism, and perhaps the Supreme Court was a little bit hasty in issuing a blanket ban on this book. Moving forward, as I mentioned, we would be taking a look at this issue of the different kinds of natural gas. Okay, so this is an article published in the Hindu. Now, the very sort of the second section of this article is great in helping you understand the difference. Okay, so first it mentions LPG, which is liquefied petroleum gas. Okay, and it says liquefied petroleum gas is manufactured by refining oil and processing natural gas. So it requires both crude oil as well as natural gas to create liquefied petroleum gas. Okay, then it speaks about LNG, or liquefied natural gas. So what is LNG? LNG is simply natural gas which is cooled below minus 160 degrees Celsius, which makes it into a liquid form, okay, and reduces its volume, makes it perfect for shipping. And finally, we have CNG, or compressed natural gas, which is mainly used for vehicular fuel. And they say this involves compressing natural gas to reduce its volume, right? Okay, as you all know, LPG, the most common way we find it in our day-to-day lives is in the form of cylinders, primarily used for cooking. CNG most commonly for vehicles. Okay, and specifically this article clarifies that India is pushing for a transition away from LPG and towards PNG, which is piped natural gas. Okay, so it's a good article to help you understand the science and the logic of India's actions as well. Okay, moving forward, as you know, there is in our daily sessions a customary sort of section on the Iran-Israel-US war. The Prime Minister held a cabinet meeting. Which committee of the cabinet met? It was the CCS, or the Cabinet Committee on Security. All right, just remember, this is one committee of the cabinet you should know about. The Cabinet Committee on Security is chaired by the Prime Minister and has as its members the four most important ministers. Who are they? The Minister of Home Affairs, the Minister of External Affairs, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Defense, right? The four core most important ministries in the country. So those four ministers, chaired by the PM, constitutes the Cabinet Committee on Security. Okay, I hope that is clear. And on a separate note, the Prime Minister is about to visit the EU. As you all know, the leaders of the EU visited India during Republic Day. The chief guests of this year's Republic Day were Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, and Antonio Costa, President of the European Council. They had attended as chief guests of the Republic Day this year. And then there was an India-EU summit held in New Delhi, where the groundwork, the signing of the deal was done for the quote-unquote mother of all deals, which was the India-EU Free Trade Agreement. All right. Now, of course, some things are still to be formalized, and that's why this article talks about a quick implementation, right? An enforcement date and mechanism still has to be figured out. Okay. Now, we have discussed yesterday how there are cracks in NATO because of this entire war. Okay. And as I mentioned, several countries have refused access to their airspace to the United States to conduct their campaign against Iran. All right. One such country, of course, is Spain. Italy did the same thing. Yesterday, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of UK, also said this is not our war, but we want to sort of lead a mechanism to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. This is coming at the same time that Trump made a massive speech last night for us, where he announced that he is considering leaving NATO. It was a larger speech about Iran, where he said we have almost accomplished our objectives. We only have some aspects which are left, and we are going to intensify our attack over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so that's the context. And obviously, NATO has been put under heavy strain. As you all know, NATO has Article 5, which is collective defense. That is, an attack against one of the members is considered an attack against all. Except it is the US which has attacked Iran, and NATO does not have a duty to come into war with a country which has started. Okay, so that is the cause of these strains. Trump, of course, saying Iran asked for a ceasefire. Iran says we did not. Now, on the humanitarian and tech front, last evening the Artemis 2 was launched. Right? What is Artemis 2? It is the second mission of the Artemis program, which is NASA's current lunar exploration program. In Artemis 2, 4 astronauts, 3 from the US, 1 from Canada, are going to conduct a lunar flyby. This is the first this is the first time in about 55 years that humans have crossed beyond the low Earth orbit. Okay. What was the original lunar mission of NASA called? It was called the Apollo mission, right? In the course of those missions, the first lunar orbiting of the US, the first person on the moon period, all of those achievements were made under the Apollo mission. And then after the initial years of the space race between the USSR and USA, both countries, by and large, abandoned further plans to reach the moon, to send humans to the moon, etc., etc. So the Artemis missions are trying to recreate that past glory. And in Artemis 2, these astronauts are going to conduct a lunar flyby. Moving forward, as you all know, India is the chair of BRICS this year, and the BRICS summit will take place nearer your Clat exam. Okay. And of course, the situation in BRICS is complicated because both Iran and the GCC countries are part of it. India, Brazil, and Russia are also a part of it. And China is also a part of it. So it is a complicated situation, but Putin indicating that he will attend. The foreign ministers meeting of BRICS will happen in the next couple of months. And then finally, the summit meeting where the leaders of the countries will attend. Okay, so BRICS will be vitally important for this year's exam. So please do pay attention to that. Okay. So this is what I was referring to. Trump saying we could exit the war soon, but we may still continue bombing. We may keep attacking for the next few weeks or months. And at the same time saying that Iran is asking for a ceasefire, which Tehran denies, which Iran denies. At the same time, the humanitarian and economic impact of this war does not seem to be abating. And many analysts expect that even if the war ends tomorrow, its inflationary impact on oil prices is perhaps going to continue. Okay. Many countries have faced severe crises already due to shortage of oil and petroleum products. Several countries have reduced their working days to conserve fuel. Some countries have issued advisories that people should reduce their consumption of fuel, take stairs, come to work on alternate days, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the fuel energy crisis which this war has generated obviously has not abated yet, but analysts expect that it may not fully abate even after this war is over. As it is, a new reality has taken shape, right? Iran is claiming full sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz and says it will only, beyond a point, it will allow countries to cross it if they pay a toll to Iran. So these are some of the proposals that are floating around as of now. It's not confirmed yet, but it is an altered geopolitical and geostrategic reality. And we will have to see how it impacts the world order as it exists. Okay. Moving forward, as you all know, yesterday the census of 2027 began. I know it's a bit counterintuitive. It's the census of 2027, but parts of it, some phases of it in some states have begun yesterday on 1st April 2026. So they mention here the Prime Minister has also completed self-enumeration. So several important facts about the census. It is the largest ever census exercise in the world. It is the first digital census in India where all the information will be digitally collected. Third, there will be an enumeration of castes. All three of these points are vitally significant. And for the first time, there will be an option of self-enumeration. That is to say, in phase 1, we will be able to fill the forms ourselves. Okay, so this exercise has begun. It is 6 years too late. The census was supposed to happen in 2021, and then it got delayed during COVID, and then it just kept getting delayed even after COVID had subsided. Anyway, the census has now begun. Homework for you is to find out the name of the mascots for the census. Okay, so that's homework for you. Please find out the names of the mascots of the census of 2027. Another article, editorial on the war today, it says sleepwalking into catastrophe and saying that silence is as alarming as the war. It's been written by Vikas Swaroop, who is a former diplomat. So he's writing about the foreign policy of the country. If you want to practice questions on this article, you should sign in to the Roznama, and you can practice questions on articles like this for English, for critical reasoning, or even for GK. All right. A very intriguing article today by Faizan Mustafa, who used to be the Vice Chancellor of Nalsar, and these days is the Vice Chancellor of CNLU, Patna. So he writes that, many people argue that the Uniform Civil Code will empower Muslim women, but he writes that the Uniform Civil Code may have the effect of leaving Muslim women worse off. Okay, why does he say that? He says that because under Muslim personal law or Sharia, only a small portion of your total property can be disposed of using a will by testamentary succession. The remaining must go to your heirs as per customary Islamic law or Muslim personal law, which is Sharia. However, what Faizan Mustafa argues that under the UCC, everyone, irrespective of religion, will have the right to dispose of their properties through will completely. And so he argues that giving people that option may lead to women being worse off. So a very interesting perspective on the Uniform Civil Code. I highly advise you to read. Professor Mustafa, of course, is a brilliant man and frequently writes on public policy and legal issues. Moving forward, just one lesser known angle of the Middle East war. First of all, you should know who the Houthis are. The Houthis relate to the country of Yemen. Okay. Now, the Houthis are supported by Iran. Okay. They are in a sense proxies of Iran. And the Houthis have, been engaged in a war inside of Yemen for many years now. All right. Now, an important strategic issue with the Houthis and related to this war is the Bab el Mandeb Strait. Okay, Babelmandeb, Bab el Mandeb Strait. Okay, it is almost as important as the Strait of Hormuz, and right at its entrance, Yemen is located. So what this author is arguing, that if Iran has a stranglehold over the choke point of the Strait of Hormuz, and the Houthis are able to disrupt shipping through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, it will truly cause a doubly worse economic and energy crisis in the world. Okay, so that is the perspective given by Sanjay Kumar Pandey, who works for the Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies at JN. Now, in the United States, there was a hearing going on in the US Supreme Court about birthright citizenship. So for years and years now, the United States has had a provision in their constitution making clear that any person born to anybody on the territory of the United States is automatically a birthright citizen of the United States. So it could be that both parents are non-citizens, but if the child was born in the US, he or she would be a citizen. This would even apply if both parents were illegal immigrants. Yet the child they would have on US soil would be considered a US citizen. So Donald Trump has been trying to undo that by way of an executive order, and the case went to the US Supreme Court. And so Donald Trump became the first president in US history to attend a hearing at the US Supreme Court. All right. The NATO angle is going to be very important to look at over the coming weeks and months. Trump clearly indicating that he thinks NATO is useless, that Europe has refused to support the US during this war, and Trump saying that he would consider leaving the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So the basics of this organization are very important. By the way, NATO Day is coming up in 2 days. It's on the 4th of April, because the North Atlantic Treaty or the Washington Treaty was signed on 4th of April, 1949. Okay, so homework for you is to find out the name of the Secretary General of NATO, where it is headquartered, and how many countries today are members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. All right. This is a preview. We don't have the winner yet, but the shortlist for the International Booker Prize 2026 has been released. So we will keep an eye out for when the winner is announced. That's all for today. And I am very glad that you all are following this on a day-to-day basis. It's our pleasure to bring this to you. I advise you that if you keep the newspaper with you while we are going through this PowerPoint, it could be even more beneficial for you. As always, it's our pleasure. Thank you. Good evening and good night.